listening to the 14th source for all geeky and nerdy news and discussion, which means that you're listening to a podcast.
For all intents and purposes.
I'm D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And we're your two overeducated, codependent nerd hosts, bringing you the things that we like to talk about, but filtered through inquisitive and critical lenses. In the episode for Friday, April 12th, 2024.
Oh boy, we're doing another episode.
Yes, and again, we're going to talk about nothing but X-Men. So here we go. No?
I love that Whitney Houston song.
Anyway, yeah, look at us, 3 in a row.
Yeah,
it's like we're professionals now. Yeah, hey, yeah. The old times are we do it years in a row, and then we feel super bad when we might miss one. I remember once, there was a very personal situation that happened, a death in the family, and you're like, we were both like, we can't just not have an episode. And you threw together that Star Trek clip show.
Yeah.
And then we're like, we're never doing that again. That's a lot of work.
I actually also think it's really funny. I think back to in the first year or two when we knew we were going to be gone. We actually recorded little shorts and stuff for the the 2 weeks we're going to be gone. And now we're like,
let's take a week off. You know what? We earned it. We earned it. We deserve this. But we're here for you this week, dear listeners, and we are going to bring you our respective weeks in geek. So, unless you haven't been raptured by the eclipse, Andrew, what was your week in geek like this week?
Okay, so you mentioned the eclipse. Is it weird? Actually, it was didn't we already have one of these?
Right.
I actually had to think back because it was 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that long ago, and I just thought when they're always the next eclipse won't happen until 2044. How's it? I guess we just had two that were in rapid succession. I mean, they're rapid.
They're backlogged, and they just kind of
the moon was just I gotta get in the way. Gotta get in the way. Yeah. Anyway, enough about that. So my week in geek. I haven't been doing that much. I've been busy. I've been whatever. However, there's this television show I've been watching. Actually, a few, but I'm not going to talk about those other ones.
No,
I actually want to talk about
X-Men 97. Here we go. You surprised me, and we're going to talk about X-Men again this week. This is awesome. Okay, so what'd you think about... No?
I want to talk about Star Trek. So this last week was the premiere of season 5 of Star Trek Discovery, the final season, which was kind of one of these I don't know what the release schedule is for these shows. It's not it's just hey, when we're done with it, we put it out.
Sure.
So
when you have your own proprietary streaming service, you can do that.
Right, and I guess that's the thing. They're well, whatever, just when it's done, put it out. Or I guess they hold it until they're ready. I mean, who knows? But Star Trek Discovery basically premiered. It wasn't on First Contact Day, April 6th, 5th. It was I think the day before. But I watched it's the first 2 episodes came out, so that's what I've seen.
Okay.
I think by the time of this recording, the 3rd will be out.
Oh wow!
But
really? Okay.
Yeah, they because it's basically a 2-part or 2-episode premiere. So I watched it, and I want to talk about it because you know what, this is
only
a
had
show
a platform
that's fun. Well, I think what's weird is not knowing what they were going to do going into it. Last season they had this kind of story about this anomaly that's blowing up planets and ended up belonged to an alien, some stuff, whatever. This season opens basically the whole season is a treasure hunt. It is hey, the USS Discovery gets involved with finding this, chasing down this thing. And what's weird is in the first episode, this is a mild spoiler, they reveal that it is directly tied to an episode from Star Trek The Next Generation, season 6, I think episode 23, The Chase.
Oh, yeah.
Which is an episode that's a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
It's basically, what if that episode but a whole season? Right?
All right, yeah.
Which is okay, makes sense. And directly connected. It is, in fact, in the first episode, they have the bit where they say, hey, this thing that happened in the 24th century. Captain Jean-Luc Picard went on this hunt and discovered this thing. Basically, the idea that all of the humanoid races of the galaxy were seeded by this one, progenitor race.
Exactly. Like the long explanation as to why do all the aliens in Star Trek look humanoid. I remember this.
And basically, this is like, okay, it's now 800 years later because Discovery at this point's in the 32nd century. But it's like, we're going back to that concept with the idea being that, hey, somebody found one of their their seeding devices, the things they use to do that. Okay. Or at least that's what it's pitched as. And basically, and actually what's funny is the idea is that it opens with, hey, there's this Romulan ship that's been gone for 800 years. Go check it out. Find this thing that's on it. And basically the ship ends up belonging to, they name check one of the Romulans from that episode. They literally have like, hey, these 3 Romulans, this guy in the back, that's him. It's him.
Wow.
He did this thing. He did this science, discovered this thing, and then says you have to find it and keep it from people because it's so dangerous, right?
Okay.
Which is like, wow, let's tie it back to that. Get the shots of progenitor lady and kind of that stuff and that narrative, but now make it into a show, like a season of Star Trek, and it is full of like little touch points, little references. One of the ones I actually saw because I was watching the Will Wheaton show after
the Ready Room,
the Ready Room.
The talk about the episode that talks about the episode that just played. Yeah,
and someone when they're interviewing makes a reference to lots of Easter eggs, and they actually talk about how like, oh, there's this like geometric design in the episode that like you're like, oh, okay, that's something, and it ends up being something, but that like, oh, but that the geometric design that they reference is from the original chase. Right, there's a lot of like, oh, we're calling back to that, we're referencing that. But yeah, to me it was like, wow, it's a fun thing to watch, and with the kind of the new technology of the 32nd century. The one thing about Discovery is they're so far in the future that like shit's different than normal Star Trek, right?
Right.
And it's kind of like a
fun
they're not
twist. From the 32nd century originally.
No, they're from the 23rd, but they had to time travel at the end of season 2.
They got booped to the future, yeah.
But I love the idea that there's this whole thing of like, just like printable matter, I think they call it, like where they're just like, oh, they're just in their little away team uniform, and they're like, oh, we need weapons, and there's and like a phaser just like formulates in their hand because it's like nanites or whatever. It's so far in the future, you just you build it. Which is kind of like to see the kind of things that they do with that, the ideas they explore, like, oh shit, we're on this away mission. We need to go into space. Don't worry, I now have a atmospheric suit. And so cool. It's this idea of it's doing Star Trek in a way that it hasn't quite been done. But yeah, just to have them do this episode or this season that is it's the show it is, but it's tied back to this next generation story.
Right.
Doing this kind of this treasure hunt thing, which is it's fun, and I assume it's going to go somewhere interesting, like it usually does. It's 2 episodes in, really excited about it. I'm loving it. Mixing up the cast a little bit, bringing back some people from that kind of left in previous seasons. Some people are leaving, bringing in new people. I think they're kind of touching all the right spots. Oh, calm down. So yeah, I'm really, and I mean, of course, we know I love all Star Trek.
Yes. But even Enterprise, you love it.
Well,
all. Nothing is bad in Star Trek. Andrew,
that's true. Actually,
love it. Everybody knows that about you.
I have not been able to finish watching Enterprise. But yeah, no, I will say I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time with it. Excited to see where it goes. Excited to have new Star Trek to watch. Right.
So, are you pretty sure this chase homage is going to be the entire season arc?
Well, I know they said that the season is like this treasure hunt thing. And honestly, they already set it up in 2 episodes that like, oh, we're finding pieces, right? Like they're literally, again, like that original episode. It's like, I think that one was like, oh, we have to go find DNA that does the stuff with the stuff.
Yeah.
That's actually like hey, they found like one piece at the end of the second episode of some larger device and they don't know what it is.
The thing that kind of, I'm not going to say bothers me because I haven't seen the show, but like the thing that kind of just makes me curious is that having its, and we talked about this before we started recording, I think it's important to say this now, like they went into the season not expecting it to be its last, right?
Right.
And so like with that in mind, it's kind of weird that that they're relying so heavily on, as you said, Easter eggs and literally the story of a show of an episode from a previous Star Trek show, and like being a Star Trek show on its own that's lasted 5 seasons is pretty impressive. And it's surprising it's not kind of ending on its own terms, with its own continuity, with its own focus. And I'm sure it will, right? I haven't seen any of the show, but like talking about how it is neat that they're referencing the chase and they're putting a bunch of Easter eggs in there and tying, even sort of in a meta-fictional kind of way, tying it to the beloved previous shows. But like, this should be Discovery's show, and it should be about that show. And I feel like from the shows I've seen, I haven't seen through to the end of all of them, but like, the Next Generation ended on its own terms, not on a bunch of original series references necessarily, right? And I'm guessing DS9 ends on its own terms, not references to TNG or the original series, and so on and so forth. But again, I'm saying that from what we get, understanding that that's not the ending they wanted. Right?
Well, and I don't think it's, the TNG connection is like what gets the story started, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't think after like that initial premise, and they give you enough if you've never seen TNG, which that's weird. Like it's weird to watch Discovery and be like, oh, I've never seen TNG.
I'm gonna start watching Star Trek. Where should I start?
All right,
Discovery.
But no, I think they definitely it's a starting point, right?
Okay.
It is not. I don't think it's going to end with like, and then Jean-Luc Picard comes back, like whatever. No,
well, they did do that.
And there was actually in the first episode, the first episode, they actually do have they do another reference to essentially to Picard, where they reference that basically it's again not a big spoiler. They discover what is clearly a Soong type android.
Oh, nice.
And they name drop not Noonien Soong, because he only made 3,
right?
Apparently, 2 plus 1. No, they reference his son, who appears in Star Trek Picard,
right? Okay.
Who like the idea that he went and made more, right?
Yeah.
So like, okay, but again, that reference wasn't super important. It was just like it's there, and I think honestly, all the Star Treks now are willing to connect. They live in a bigger universe where it's not. I would compare it to how the MCU felt early on, where like, oh, let's throw in a Roxxon reference or whatever. Like, let's put this thing that doesn't matter. Which we're gonna put it there because we know there's this bigger universe we're building around. Whereas, contrast with the modern MCU where everything is literally like, no, that's gonna be in this other show. You better go watch it.
Everything is homework.
Whereas, like, this is more like if you know, you know. If you don't, that's fine too.
Which is how I prefer references to be done, where it's like it's not contingent on you knowing this 30-year-old episode.
Right. Like anything you need to know about that episode, I'm assuming they've already given us, or if they have more, like they're like, oh, remember that Klingon guy? Like they'll mention it. The rest of it is just there to be like, oh, have you been watching all Star Trek forever? Like here's,
Andrew's like, yes.
Yeah, like here's some fun stuff, which I think Discovery's done more. I mean, honestly, they when they introduced Captain Pike in season 2, like it wasn't like you'd have to go back and watch. I guess both episodes of the original series, but it was like if you know, then you're like, wow, this is a cool tie-in.
Yeah.
Same like you've seen you're watching Stranger Worlds, which is the direct like
that's
They literally, that's one where you didn't need to watch Discovery season 2,
right,
or even the original series to know what they're tying into when they talk about Pike and his rather unfortunate circumstances.
That's an interesting show to bring up, though, because I think based on its very premise, and again, you don't necessarily need to know the original series, but it is definitely constrained by the original series.
Yes.
And like that's going to be a show that I don't know. Will it get to end on its own terms? Will it have to be beholden to Stars Trek previous Stars Trek, I should say? But then again, that's kind of the fun of the show.
Wouldn't it be Treks, not Stars Trek?
Stars Trek. Attorneys
Treks.
General. Yes, Stars Treks. You know what? It's not important. It's the future. Everything is true. But yeah, it's a different. Considering that show is basically rooted in. Like, the show is an Easter egg in a way, but it is definitely forging its own voice and its own path, and it can go anywhere it wants.
Yeah.
But it is still working under a ceiling that I feel like Discovery isn't necessarily doing.
Right. Well, I think one of the things with Discovery was because they originally were in that era, right?
Right.
And it was a bit more constrained, and then they're like, nope, we're in the so far in the future that there is no Star Trek that's ever gone this far.
Right.
Thumbs up. Like they've kind of done their own thing. They put throwbacks and tie-ins when they need to, or when they want to. Right.
There we go. Yeah.
To the point where actually, season 3, there's a 2-part episode that features Michelle Yeoh's character, Philippa Georgiou, and kind of like how she gets back in time. It has a big callback to the original series.
Oh, really?
And it was filled with like little references and little like, oh, if you know, you're like, oh, I know what this is, right?
Right.
But if you don't, you just okay, there's something that does the thing.
I heard that they finished filming the thing that she's doing. Movie?
Section 31, yeah, movie.
Yeah.
I know that I don't know what the I know it is in production. It's on the way. And that's another thing. We'll see what that one. I know that one's actually got another tie-in because they've already revealed a character that's in it, which is a young woman who the character she's playing is named Rachel Garrett, which is like, oh, that's a totally generic lady name, but it's also for Star Trek in the deep nerd zone. That is the name of the captain of the Enterprise C from the episode Yesterday's Enterprise. So what they've revealed is that whatever their story is, it will involve her, that character, as a younger woman. Now, will it matter? Like, do you need to have... No. That's actually one where, like, all you know, if you've seen that TNG episode, is like, well, big yikes, lady. We know where it's going. It ain't good for you, but good luck. But, that's fine. Like, you can watch it not knowing that. You can watch it knowing that. I mean, I think of this like... what was Star Wars Rogue One.
Yeah.
Oof, oh boy, Star Wars Rogue One, right? That's
I feel like I just won a victory. I don't know why, but I feel like I just did.
That's a movie where you kind of know what's going to happen, right? Like, oh, they're gonna get the thing they need, and it's probably not going to end well for these people, right? Like, because that's how Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope opened with, like, well, here are the plans that were transmitted. Don't ask about the people that sent them,
Right.
So, like, all right, cool. Like, but that didn't mean it was a bad movie. So I think that's like what Star Trek can do: explore its spaces. Think about, actually, as we know with Strange New Worlds, we have literally the main character. We know where he's going. We also know where Spock is going.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that they can't tell stories. They can't, engage with the characters and actually have really compelling stuff. Yeah. So, yeah. I honestly, Discovery is the fact that they use this classic TNG episode is a jump pad. Yeah. I think that's cool because it is this kind of thing where that was actually a cool episode, right? Like, in terms of the theme of that episode, for those that haven't seen it, spoiler for something from 1993. It's basically that, like, oh, hey, all of you different alien species, you're all related through this common bond of this progenitor species. And maybe you should all be friends because the whole reason is they wanted a galaxy filled with, like, people that had people to interact with, right? They're like, they were alone and they didn't want that for future peoples.
It was the same premise of like, we should get 2 cats because I don't want one to be lonely.
Right. And so it was just, it was kind of like, oh, this is it's meant to be uplifting. And of course, you know, no one actually went that way. Everyone's like, oh, what if we still did war? You know? But the idea that Discovery is going to repeat that story.
Yeah.
Or at least that theme. Like, I assume it's going to move in a similar direction with like, we should be working together. Right. Mm-hmm. I want to hope so, because the one of the premises of Discovery is in the far future where things kind of suck now. I mean, their season 3 was literally they get to the future and there is no Federation, or at least it's very small because of reasons. Yeah. So they spend a season trying to rebuild it, or 2 actually.
Oh, geez.
So the idea that now we're in, you know, like let's have that a similar story with a different cast of characters. You know, I don't like. I'm enjoying it. I'm excited to see it. It will be sad to see a Star Trek show end, but you know, it happens.
It does. You know, the other connection with just those first, you know, the fact that this new season is rooted in the chase and the Next Generation is that Jonathan Frakes has directed for Discovery quite a bit.
Yes.
Right? And he directed the chase as well.
Oh, I never know. Like, that guy, I will say Jonathan Frakes at this point is kind of like some weird Godfather of Star Trek.
Yeah, he is. Like, he's in it. Like, he's in it. Like, I mean, he's committed.
Right. He's directed every show with the exception potentially of the original series, but we don't know.
And Lower Decks, maybe.
That's true. Right. So, update. He's either directed or been in everything but the original series. And that's actually like, wow, okay, you are a fixture of the genre. And honestly, like, every time I see an interview with him, every time I see, like, it's, yes, he is apparently the heart of Star Trek. We just didn't realize it was him all along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just checking to see if he did direct any Lower Decks. No.
I don't think so. Right, it's animated. But he was in it, right? He was in several episodes.
He directed an episode of The Gifted, an X-Men show. So, just to bring it all back.
And a lot of leverage, I will say.
A lot of leverage, yeah.
And also the librarians.
The Orville, actually.
Yeah, I mean, he's apparently he's actually quite good as a director.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just go through Jonathan Frakes' directography.
Right.
Anyway.
But anyway, that's my Week in Geek, Dan. What about you?
Mine will be pretty quick because I've been, you know, that's the refrain of our show. That's the reason why we've been so sort of sporadic, is that we've gotten busy with like stuff, especially after, you know, 10 years of doing a show. And so I've just been busy with work and all that stuff. And, I guess I could say I did finish, like capital F finish, Sea of Stars, which was a great,
so New Garl Plus?
Let's just say that. No spoilers, but yes.
Sorry, I believe that's the name of the achievement.
Got a bit emotional. And that was the new game. It's not the new game plus, but yeah, that's the name of the achievement. But like the sort of half new game plus they do once you beat it once, and then they're like, hey, do this other thing. And I'm like, what? All right. Sounds kind of stupid, but I'm like, I only had, of like the 8 requirements, I had 2 left to do. So I'm like, all right, I'll see what happens. And I was not expecting them to do what they did, and I'm like, this is incredible. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about a different video game that I had a void now. Balatro is kind of, you know, it's just a card game you can bop in and out of, and Sea of Stars had wrapped up. And so one of the things I talked about for a while is like I've always wanted, I don't want to say Firefly the game, but like the feeling of having that small ship that is also your flying house, and that you can just kind of do what you want. Mm-hmm. And like, I wanted that game. I've wanted that game. Like, Mass Effect series kind of touched on that, where you have your Normandy, you can walk around on, there's stuff to do a little bit on that ship. People kept telling me that No Man's Sky was that, and it kind of was, not really. Also, I think the gameplay loop of No Man's Sky, while beautiful and interesting and like important game, can wear on you after a while. Yeah. And I heard a lot about Starfield, but that's a Microsoft exclusive, so you can only play it on. I don't even know if it's on Steam. It's on the Microsoft Game Store, or whatever they call that.
I have no idea.
And the Xbox consoles, and I'm not a part of that ecosystem, and so not expecting that. I figured like, well, okay, maybe eventually, because Microsoft is doing weird things, maybe Starfield would come to the PlayStation at some point, whatever. And so I'll just bide my time. But I'd heard some things that from, I think it's a game from a few years, 2019, made by Obsidian, and who had, large RPG or long RPG history. I think most recently known for, Fallout New Vegas and
Outer Worlds.
And Outer Worlds, which is the game that I picked up because it was on a deep sale. And I'm like, well, I'm in the mood for maybe like a little Fallout light, because I heard it's not super long. But about 4 hours in, I'm like, I think, at least for what it is right now, it's kind of that spaceship game I wanted. You get a ship pretty quickly, and you can choose your crew. You can fire people, you can hire people, and they all have interesting backstories, and you can choose who you take with you on missions, and you can just kind of bop around and be, Serenity. You can be Malcolm Reynolds and like just be a scoundrel, or you can be nice, or you can cause strife amongst local.
Or you can try
governments.
to be nice.
Indeed.
Yeah,
and
no matter what you do, everything sucks.
that's the Obsidian way.
Sorry, I literally was actually talking, because apparently it's actually free on the Epic Game Store right now.
Oh, sure.
It's and I was talking with some friends, and that was my takeaway. It was like, well, no matter what you do, everything sucks. But anyway, please go ahead.
Maybe that's true, but also like, it's got that Fallout quirkiness and charm that is also kind of, that I guess balances out the despair, right? And I'm enjoying it. I'm not like super invested. I am when conversations get too long, I kind of just click through them, because I'm like, let me just walk around. But the other thing, I was like, it's been a while since I played a Fallout or Oblivion style first-person RPG, and it's kind of like putting on a comfortable pair of shoes, even though it's a game I've never played before. So, and it's also interesting taking that into I guess Fallout is a sci-fi setting, but like a, more space-based science fiction setting that it's kind of, it's like, it's familiar, but it's not, and I'm enjoying what it is. But it's set up the same way as if you've played Fallout or any of the Elder Scrolls games. It's basically that you make your character, you have your stats points. Every time you gain a level, you get to choose, you get to disperse upgrade points, and every now and then you get to choose a perk, and it works the same way as Fallout, and like, perks can have benefits and deficits and all kinds of stuff. It's the sort of the setting is interesting. You're kind of you're in this galaxy that has sort of a loose unified government, but the government that's unifying everything is actually like a corporation, right? And then you can always see how everything sucks. And you're just this, well, so you're like a guy frozen, or a person. You're a person frozen in a cryogenic chamber, and you're chosen by this crazy renegade scientist to fulfill some goal, right?
Right.
Without wanting to give too much away. And so you're woken up, and this crazy scientist is like, you're going to meet this person on this planet. They'll tell you what to do. So they shoot you toward this planet. Your escape pod lands. You exit the pod, and you're like, where's this captain this pilot that I was supposed to meet? You turn around, and your escape pod landed on that pilot. And it's that pilot whose identity you ostensibly assume, and it's their ship that you take after having to, get the parts to make your ship fly again. But it's not a surprising game. It plays just like Fallout, Elder Scrolls kind of thing. Mostly Fallout. And it's just a good diversion that I wasn't expecting and didn't know I wanted. And the characters are well written, well acted, and it's quirky enough to keep me going. And yeah, I'm for those that have been worried, my little weird spaceship game desire has temporarily, at the very least, been satiated. and
that's good.
Everything's right in the world for once.
No, that's I will say, you know, I played through a little bit of it. I think I got, you know, without too much context, at the end of the first planet, and that's where I realized, like, oh, you end up kind of deciding what the outcome of that planet was, and I discovered that like every outcome sucks, and that's when I stopped for me, because it was like, because and this gets to the New Vegas versus Fallout 3 and 4 discussion, which is, for me, it was like, well, in Fallout 4, it felt more like there was an option that was, maybe it wasn't like the bestest ever, but it felt like unequivocally good. And in Fallout 3, the whole premise was like, you know, you're trying to provide water, right? Like, and then the bad guys show up, you know?
right.
But for Fallout 4, I think a lot about, like, yeah, you could choose any of these factions, but one of them, the Minutemen, was the one that was like, say what you will about them, General, there's another settlement that needs your help. Like, they were literally trying to do the best thing they could, where all the other factions were like, oh, but what if poop in your mouth? It was like Vegas. New Vegas is a Fallout where, like, every option was like, well, you thought they were good, but also they'll shit in your mouth too. And that's, I think, what Outer Worlds, because, again, same team. And it's also akin to what Fallout 1 and 2 were. Right. There were no good choices. And I think I realized, oh, like, I don't think I like that. Which is why I bounced off of it.
the chosen savior narrative, though. Like, one person can't solve everybody's problems, but I'm not going to defend it beyond that.
Oh no, I know and that's fine. It was like, but no matter what you chose, like, the only choice that was the good choice was to stop playing. Like, that was my takeaway, right? Like, it's, you know, the best thing you could do for this world is to not make a choice, because every choice ends with like, well, you thought that was good, but these people now, like, eat dicks, you know?
Well, if they can grow, if you can grow them, might as well eat them. Right. But that's interesting, because, like, I saw that too. But again, I was motivated. Like, I get a spaceship, so I was kind of like, I don't care about these people. I'm just going to keep going. But I hit a situation where, we were presented with an option. Like, you have two options. One fucks over one group of people. The other fucks over another group of people. But then I went and did the thing, and it sent me a map marker to go back to the leader of the people that I technically fucked over. And I was actually presented with a choice that basically consolidated the two groups to not necessarily live in harmony, but it wasn't a complete wipe of one group or the other. And I'm not going to say it was a pleasant ending, but no bloodshed. And it was interesting to receive that option. But then I'm like, I got the thing. I got my spaceship. I'm out of here. So I wasn't too concerned.
And this is actually like, I'm one of those people that has trouble playing a game as evil, right? Like, oh, there's the evil mode. Like, there's the renegade in Mass Effect. I always like, I struggle because, like, oh, but I want to be the good guy, you know? And I do realize that I've, you know, probably because of, you know, my gameplay as a youth, playing, I was Sight Ultima, which was like, no, you have to be virtuous. That's the point of the game.
right.
And how that has affected me when it comes to playing games, such that like, I want to have the best option. And if you're like, well, that's not how life is, Andrew. Like, sure, I'm not living right now. I'm playing a game.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't want to play a game that reminds me that life sucks. I want to play a game that gives me hope. Again, I also grew up watching Star Trek.
Right.
Back to...
But, I mean, that's the thing. Like, it was so impactful. Like, you live in constant fear of Lord British actually coming to harm you physically.
Right. For not, like, he'll show up and say, you've lost an eighth. And he'll strip me of my power. Right, yeah. That's a deep cut, I'm sorry. But yeah,
you should see a therapist, I think.
Yeah. Because I need to see a therapist because I can't enjoy video games.
Let's talk about this Lord British figure you've conjured in your mind. No, he's real, man.
I mean, he is real.
He is very real.
He's very real. I think he's still with us, in New York.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, and again, sometime I may give it another whirl. It may be less worse than I thought.
Yeah.
It was just you know, such a... It's the same thing. I actually, despite being a Fallout obsessive, I've never played through New Vegas because I got to a certain point and I'm like, wow. you're going to give me a shit sandwich
Yeah.
any choice I make.
I got to a point where I think I saved at like a point where I'm like, I don't think I can get out of this.
Well,
so
I had that
stopped
too.
playing. Yeah. It was also not a very well put together. I mean, with patches and stuff, I heard it ended up playing fine, but
it did have some structural problems.
Yeah. That being said, like Outer Worlds, it looks very nice. It's been playing smoothly and solid.
That's just like a game 5 years after it came out.
Just like a good bowel movement, it plays solid and smooth, and I enjoy every minute of it. We were talking before the show about how, oh man, is this just a show where we're talking about getting older? I'm like, yeah, well, here we are.
Here we are. No. You just dropped a BM reference.
Yes. Yeah. A beautiful RPG.
Yeah.
So if you, dear listeners, have any thoughts about the topics we discussed this week, feel free to leave your thoughts as comments on the page for this episode at forallintents.net.
You can also post your comments or engage in conversations with other listeners on our Facebook page.
You can find us on other social media, specifically the places that Andrew and I frequent, which means you can find me on Instagram at dbethelcomics, and you can find Andrew on Mastodon at profounddark@dice.camp.
While you're at our website at forallintents.net, you can also take a look at our YouTube page, which you can find by clicking on the link in the corner that says YouTube. There you'll find the show. If you are listening to our show on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Or as the kids say, ring that bell. I don't actually know. Is ringing the bell subscribing or liking? It's subscribing. Okay.
I think it's actually a notification button you're pushing.
Oh, shit.
It's separate from subscribing.
Well, do all the things.
Do all the things. Make us the thing that bothers you the most on YouTube.
I've been telling people, like, only do one of the things. Like, no, do all of them.
Yes. Speaking of doing all the things, we use 2 tracks of music for our show. One is called Disco Medusae, the other is called District 4. Both written and performed by Kevin McLeod of the Clan McLeod, immortal swordsman, graph paper enthusiast, and musician extraordinaire.
You can find his music at incompetech.filmmusic.io, and that's all licensed under the Creative Commons 4.0 attribution license.
If you like the show and like to help us out, the best way to do so would be to subscribe to the show using whichever podcasting service you happen to use. What would help us out more, though, would be to leave some sort of review, whether a text review or using that service's proprietary metric will help spread the word to new potential listeners through the magic of algorithms. So, Andrew, will you remember where you were on this once-in-a-lifetime in the last 5 years, 6 years eclipse?
No.
Did you go out and look at the sun get extinguished?
No, because I live in Seattle, man. Like, if you look at where the eclipse could be seen, it was literally for people that weren't near me. Actually, I joked. I was on a Discord about people who were all like, "Oh, I went outside, got pictures, and whatever." And I'm like, "Oh, the best picture I got was this." And I just sent it's just a logo to the old show Heroes,
Yeah.
which has an eclipse in it. And everyone's like, "Ha ha." Yeah.
I just figured you sent him a pic. You went outside and took a picture, and it's just cloud coverage, it's just overcast.
Well, apparently there's a lot of that. Like people in places where the eclipse happened, they're like, "Oh, look, it's clouds."
So until you have another chance to reference the old TV show Heroes, dear listeners, I'm D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And for all intents and purposes,
that was a podcast.
Save the cheerleader. Save the world.
Yeah, a lot of people said that too. I mean, I took a COVID test after lunch and I was negative, so.
Damn.
I don't really want more fucking COVID.
But then you don't have to go back to work, and that's great.
Infinite COVID, infinite combinations.
Okay, that can't be the episode title, because they'll flag us again. It's the final season, correct?
The final season. Although they didn't know that when they started filming it.
Uh-oh. Well, anyway, let's just do a fucking episode.
Let's talk about how old we are.
You can probably listen to that happen in real time over the 10 years we've been doing this fucking
right?
thing.
Can you imagine 10 years ago, right? We were like young early 30 somethings who were like, oh, we're so light and breezy and everything's so great. Now we're like, death comes for us all.
So if you, dear listeners, have any thoughts about the topic,
you could find his music at Incompetech at... No, wait. That's good. We don't need the fucking YouTube police coming after me.
Not again, man. YouTube, Dr. YouTube coming in saying, yo, this isn't medical advice. Fair off.